You just finished an 800-page fantasy epic. You are still reeling from the cliffhanger, and you need a new series to fill the void. But walking into the Romantasy section right now can feel like stepping into an avalanche. Committing to a modern 5-book Romantasy series is a significant decision. You are looking at a 15 to 60-hour investment of your time, the equivalent of watching several seasons of a prestige television show start to finish. This chart shows the top Romantasy section authors' sales trajectory. One leading author alone has sold over 75 million copies, dwarfing traditional fiction benchmarks. When factoring in indie publishing, those numbers explode. Thousands of new titles enter this ecosystem monthly, outpacing traditional curation. If you scroll Book Talk for recommendations, the algorithm will often serve you books based on superficial tropes, like enemies to lovers or forced proximity. But while a trope might catch your eye, it cannot sustain a narrative for 60 hours. For that, you need structural architecture. To find the stories that actually keep you turning pages, we are going to deconstruct the 3 core narrative archetypes driving the current boom. Identifying the underlying structure that matches your specific reading preferences helps you filter out the algorithmically pushed books that rely on mismatched tropes. The first major archetype is the military or academy crucible. These stories are built on physical survival and strict institutional hierarchies. The characters aren't just exploring a world, they are navigating a high-stakes training ground. Choosing this subgenre requires a specific trade-off. You are opting for a rigid, trial-based plot structure in exchange for a highly focused, localized narrative. This focus results in rapid pacing. Because the characters face constant, measurable tests, their progression is easy to track, and the action sequences carry immediate stakes. This matrix shows how the Dragon Bond functions as a narrative engine. It's a magical link that ties 2 characters together, functioning as a modernized version of the classic marriage plot to force constant proximity. This framework is responsible for massive commercial hits. Authors like Rebecca Yarros used these specific crucible mechanics in series like Fourth Wing to create a sense of constant urgency, a structure you'll also find in indie debuts like Stormrider. The trade-off is that institutional settings can lead to formulaic plot beats. Furthermore, the magical bond risks accelerating the romance faster than it might develop through character interaction alone. If you pick up an Academy Crucible, you are trading the slow burn of a multi-book romance for guaranteed pacing and a high-tension atmosphere. The second archetype is mythic political intrigue. This shifts the focus to expansive worlds, court politics, and high-level societal stakes. This framework requires more from you early on. You have to spend several hundred pages digesting complex lore and mapping out character allegiances before the central conflict fully ignites. The payoff for that investment is depth. These stories offer more room to explore the morality of power and the corruption embedded in the fictional systems. These narratives also lean into the seducer versus rescuer dynamic. In many cases, the early love interest is a false flag, a manipulative figure meant to challenge the protagonist's growth. You can see the roots of this framework in George R.R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire, which Sarah J. Maas eventually evolved into the mythic and political structure of A Court of Thorns and Roses. The trade-off here is speed. The world building is inherently slower, and the false love interest trope means the plot might intentionally dismantle a relationship you spent 15 hours rooting for. This archetype rewards patience. It's for readers who are willing to navigate early complexity for the sake of a massive, sweeping narrative conclusion. The final archetype is alternate reality or historical fantasy. This serves as the intellectual counterweight to more traditional romantasy. This requires engaging with a blend of historical fiction and analytical magic. You might be navigating a 1920s London where dragons are a documented scientific reality rather than a myth. The outcome is a grounded experience. The tension is derived from class warfare, linguistics, or systemic change, rather than just battlefield survival. Titles like A Language of Dragons execute this by using fantasy elements to critique historical power structures. The trade-off is a significantly lower level of action and romance. If your priority is high heat and constant combat, this structural approach will likely feel frustrating. This completed matrix allows for a side-by-side analysis of all three narrative frameworks, showing how each one dictates the pace and focus of the story. This archetype sacrifices the adrenaline of escapist fantasy to provide a systemic critique of historical structures. Despite their differences, the most effective Romantasy novels share one goal. They use these external pressures to force their characters into difficult relationship negotiations. This flowchart matches your reading priorities to the structural engine that best supports them. If you prioritize intense forced proximity and high-speed pacing, the Academy Crucible is your best bet. A book like Stormrider is a strong match. If you prefer moral gray areas and complex political plotting, follow the path toward mythic epics like Fireborn. And if you want intellectual world building that tackles systemic issues, look toward alternate reality fantasy like A Language of Dragons. Choosing a book based on a few seconds of viral footage often overlooks the structural elements that make a series actually worth reading in the long term. By identifying the structural engine that holds your interest, you can better predict which books are worth the time commitment. You're building a personalized filter that looks past the marketing to find the stories that actually align